My transition into university life was marked by a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. Moving into the old house turned student housing felt like a rite of passage, a step into independence and the unknown adventures of academic life. The house itself had a peculiar charm, its walls echoing with the remnants of decades past, each creak and groan telling a story of years gone by. My room was on the second floor, small but cozy, with a view that overlooked a neglected backyard, surrounded by a high fence and dense underbrush, making it a secluded, almost forgotten space. Initially, this isolation provided a much-needed respite from the bustling campus life, a private sanctuary where I could study, reflect, and recharge in solitude. However, as autumn deepened, bringing with it longer nights and the chill of coming winter, an unsettling feeling began to take root. It started subtly, a faint moaning sound that would rise with the evening fog. At first, I convinced myself it was nothing more than the wind whistling through the aging timbers of the house, or perhaps the distant cries of animals in the night. But as the days passed, the sound grew more distinct, more unsettlingly human, as if someone, or something, was lamenting just outside my window. I tried to share my concerns with my housemates, but they seemed unfazed, attributing the noises to the usual quirks of old houses or the imaginative fears of a first-year student. Despite their reassurances, the sounds became an unwelcome nightly occurrence, disturbing my sleep and leaving me lying awake, staring at the ceiling, straining to hear over my own racing heartbeat. The sense of unease was exacerbated by the room's layout and the positioning of the window, which, while offering a picturesque view of the overgrown backyard during the day, became a black mirror at night, reflecting my own anxious face back at me while concealing whatever secrets lay beyond. The lack of access to the yard added to the mystery and my growing sense of dread, as there was no way to easily check the source of the moans without venturing outside and around the building, a daunting prospect in the dead of night. With each passing evening, the moaning seemed to grow closer, more desperate, and I found myself caught between the rational explanations of my daytime self and the fearful imaginings of the night. My academic work began to suffer, my thoughts consumed by the need to understand these nocturnal disturbances. Little did I know this was only the beginning, and the true test of my courage and sanity was yet to come. As autumn deepened into winter, the atmosphere around the university and within the walls of my housing grew denser, colder, and more isolated. The moaning that had begun as an eerie background noise became a nightly herald of dread, a prelude to the dark hours that stretched endlessly before me. But just as I began to grow accustomed to this unsettling serenity, a new, more terrifying element was introduced into my nocturnal ordeal: the tapping. It started one night as I was teetering on the edge of sleep, exhausted from days filled with lectures and nights plagued by restless anxiety. The sound was faint at first, so delicate that I thought I might have imagined it, a soft, rhythmic tapping against the window pane. My heart skipped a beat, and a chill ran down my spine. I lay frozen, my eyes wide open in the darkness, trying to convince myself it was just a figment of my imagination, a dream fragment lingering in wakefulness. But the tapping persisted, growing more deliberate, more insistent. It seemed to be calling to me, a sinister Morse code that filled the room with an ominous sense of expectancy. I could no longer dismiss it as mere coincidence or imagination. This was real, tangible, and it was happening just a few feet from where I lay vulnerable and exposed. The fear that night was palpable, a thick, suffocating blanket that settled over me, rendering me incapable of movement or thought. Hours passed, each tap a hammer blow to my sanity, until the first light of dawn crept through the curtains and the tapping ceased, leaving me exhausted and unnerved, but paradoxically relieved that whatever had been on the other side of the glass had not found a way in. In the days that followed, the tapping became a dreaded ritual. Each evening, as the sky darkened and the campus quieted, I would brace myself for the onset of the sounds, the now familiar moaning followed by the chilling tap, tap, tap against the window. I tried various tactics to uncover its source or ward off the unseen visitor, rearranging my furniture, sealing the window edges, even placing talismans that my more superstitious friends had offered me. But nothing deterred the nightly visitor. Sleep became an elusive, fitful exercise, filled with nightmares and broken by sudden awakenings to the now expected tapping. My academic performance suffered. My social life dwindled to nothing as I became consumed by the mystery of the sounds and the dread of nightfall. Friends began to notice the dark circles under my eyes, the jumpy responses to unexpected noises, the obsessive glances towards my window even during daylight. I knew I couldn't continue like this. I had to find some resolution, or at least confront whatever was haunting me. But nothing could prepare me for the night when my fear reached its peak, pushing me to take action in a way I never thought I could. The night when the tapping, so familiar yet so terrifying, would force me to face the unknown lurking just beyond the safety of my window pane. The incessant nocturnal disturbances had taken their toll, transforming my once peaceful sanctuary into a stage for an unsettling mystery that I could neither solve nor escape. Driven by a mix of fear, frustration, and sheer desperation, I embarked on a quest for answers, delving into every possible explanation that could shed light on the moaning and tapping that haunted my nights. My search began with a deep dive into the history of the old house and its surroundings. I scoured the university archives, hoping to uncover any incidents or stories that might explain the eerie occurrences. I learned of past residents and the building's various incarnations, from a family home to a boarding house, before becoming student housing. Yet, despite the tales of eccentric inhabitants and typical collegiate mischief, nothing I found could account for the unnerving sounds outside my window. Refusing to be deterred, I turned to the internet, joining forums and reading through countless threads on unexplained phenomena, seeking anyone who had experienced anything similar. I posted my story, omitting no detail, from the first unsettling moan to the persistent tapping that followed. Responses varied from sympathetic to skeptical, with suggestions ranging from the plausible to the absurd. I tried everything that was suggested, changing the angle of the window blinds, setting up motion sensors, even sprinkling salt along the windowsill as one particularly superstitious respondent advised. Simultaneously, I became a student of the wind, observing its patterns, its strength, its direction, trying to correlate it with the occurrences of the sounds. I inspected the exterior of the house by day, searching for any logical source of the tapping, loose shutters, dangling branches, anything that could explain the nightly terror. But the backyard remained as inaccessible and undisturbed as ever, its secrets cloaked by the thick underbrush and high fence. My days were consumed by research and observation, and my nights by vigilance. I started keeping a journal, documenting every sound, every occurrence, no matter how insignificant it seemed. Patterns eluded me, however. The sounds came without rhyme or reason, defying the logical explanations I so desperately sought. Conversations with my housemates turned from casual to confrontational. I pressed them for details of their own experiences, wondering if they were withholding information. But their responses only deepened my isolation. They shared no such troubles and began to view me with a mix of concern and distance. I was becoming the house oddity, the one who heard things in the night. Despite the growing rift between my peers and me, my resolve only strengthened. I knew what I had heard. I knew what I had felt. The fear, the sleepless nights, the feeling of being watched from just beyond the glass. It was all too real, too visceral to be mere imagination. And so, my search continued, each unsuccessful answer driving me deeper into a labyrinth of uncertainty. Little did I know, the true test of my resolve was yet to come, pushing me to confront the unknown in a way I never thought possible. The journey for answers was far from over, but my determination was unwavering. I would uncover the truth behind the moaning and tapping, or I would lose myself in the attempt. The relentless cycle of eerie moans and mysterious tapping had pushed me to the brink of my own sanity. Each night became a battle between the need for sleep and the fear of what awaited me in the darkness. My days were overshadowed by anxiety, my thoughts constantly returning to the unexplained phenomena that had invaded my once peaceful existence. The lack of sleep and the stress of the situation were evident in my gaunt reflection in the mirror, a stark contrast to the energetic student I had been at the start of the semester. It was on a particularly cold and silent night that my frustration and fear culminated in a decisive moment. The tapping had started earlier than usual, more insistent, as if challenging me, mocking my helplessness. I felt a surge of anger, a rebellious spark against the invisible force that had been tormenting me for weeks. No longer could I allow this intimidation to continue without confrontation. Armed with a mix of anger and desperation, I decided it was time to face whatever was haunting me. I couldn't live in fear any longer. I equipped myself with the heaviest object within reach, a thick, hardcover textbook, its weight oddly comforting in my hands. My heart pounded in my chest, a rapid drumbeat echoing in the silent room as I approached the window, the source of my torment. The tapping seemed to grow louder, more urgent, as if aware of my approach. My hand hesitated on the curtain, every instinct screaming to turn back, to hide under the covers, to continue living in fearful ignorance. But I couldn't. The need for answers, for peace, outweighed my terror. With a deep breath, I mustered every ounce of courage I possessed and yanked the curtain aside, bracing for the worst. My eyes darted frantically, searching for the source of my nightmares, ready to confront it head-on. But there was nothing. The backyard lay still under the moon's pale light, undisturbed and innocuous. The tapping ceased abruptly, leaving behind a heavy silence that seemed to mock my anticlimactic discovery. Confusion and adrenaline warred within me as I stared into the empty night, trying to make sense of the situation. My rational mind struggled to catch up, to explain the sudden silence, the absence of any threat. Had I scared it away? Was it all just a series of coincidences, my fear conjuring ghosts where there were none? The cold night air seeped through the slightly ajar window, a reminder of the reality outside my panicked bubble. I leaned out, scanning the yard with newfound determination, searching for any clue, any sign that could explain the mysterious tapping. But there was nothing. Just the quiet, desolate space, untouched and serene. The aftermath of the confrontation left me with mixed feelings. Relief that I had faced my fear, yet disappointment and confusion at the lack of answers. The mystery remained unsolved, the source of the tapping and moaning as elusive as ever. But something had shifted within me, a realization that I couldn't let this unknown entity dictate my life, that I needed to reclaim my space and my peace of mind. Though the night ended without incident, the experience marked a turning point. I knew that the only way to move past this was to continue seeking answers, to not let fear paralyze me. The confrontation at the window had not provided the solutions I hoped for, but it had ignited a resolve to uncover the truth, no matter how deep I had to dig or how unsettling the discovery might be. The journey for clarity was far from over, but I was no longer a passive victim to the nocturnal hauntings. I was a seeker of truth, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The days and nights that followed my confrontation at the window brought a change that was both palpable and perplexing. The moaning and tapping, the sinister companions of my nocturnal world, had ceased without explanation, as abruptly as they had begun. The silence, though initially a source of profound relief, gradually morphed into a canvas for introspection and countless unanswered questions. In the newfound quiet, my life slowly began to return to some semblance of normalcy. Sleep, once a battleground of fear and anticipation, became a refuge once more. My academic performance improved, and the strained relationships with my peers started to heal. Yet, despite these positive changes, a shadow of the past lingered, a subtle reminder of the fear and confusion that had dominated my existence for what seemed an eternity. The end of the disturbances left me in a state of liminal space, caught between the desire to move forward and the need to understand what had transpired. my search for answers did not end with the cessation of the tapping and moaning. If anything, it intensified, driven by the need to make sense of the experience, to find closure. I delved into local history, spoke to longtime residents, and even reached out to previous occupants of the house, but the mystery remained intact, a puzzle missing its crucial pieces. As the seasons changed, bringing the end of the academic year into view, I found myself reflecting on the journey I had undertaken. The fear, once a constant presence, had receded, leaving in its wake a sense of growth and resilience I had not known I possessed. The experience forced me to confront my fears, to face the unknown with courage, and to acknowledge the limits of my understanding. The mystery of the moaning and tapping, though unresolved, became a part of my personal history, a story to share in hushed tones during late-night conversations. Yet it was more than just a tale of unexplained phenomena. It was a testament to my evolution from a frightened student to someone who had stared into the abyss of fear and emerged stronger. In the years that followed, the memories of those unsettling nights in the old house faded into the background, softened by the passage of time and the accumulation of new experiences. Yet, they never entirely disappeared. Every creak of floorboards, every whisper of wind against a window pane, carried echoes of the past, a reminder of the thin veil between the ordinary and the inexplicable. The lasting impact of the events was not the fear or the unanswered questions, but the indelible mark they left on my character. I emerged from the ordeal with a newfound appreciation for the complexities of the human mind, the power of the unknown to shape our perceptions and reactions, and the strength we possess to confront and adapt to the mysteries that life presents. In retrospect, the moaning and tapping served as a catalyst for personal growth, a challenge that pushed me to explore the depths of my own courage and resilience. While the source of the disturbances remained a mystery, the experience illuminated the profound truth that sometimes it is not the answers that shape us, but the questions and the journey they inspire. And so, with a sense of peace tempered by curiosity, I moved forward, forever changed by the enigmatic symphony of that old university house.